All right, Manny, take a look at the internet weather for this week, and I'm going to mostly skip over the most probe ports. As we've talked about on the show, it's not insignificant, but these are the ports that are probed the most, but not necessarily by the most unique source IPs. So we're going to kind of skip over these because there's some more interesting things in the scan sources chart here. So the one that I thought was really interesting is port 2000 TCP went up 371 positions to the number 3 spot. And we're going to take a closer look at that one and what that's probably about. I have some theories on that. And then 8291, we're going to talk about that one as well and what that probably is. And then the 5555 TCP we've talked about on the show previously. It's been an active port in the past maybe month or so. The first one we're going to look at is port 8291 TCP, which is associated with Mikrotik, which is a router. Around March 24th, somewhere in the middle of the day there, we started to see, basically, we went from nobody scanning on this port, 8291, all the way up to about 100,000 scan sources per hour, which is a lot. And it's since gone down, but it's still up there, so compared to where it was before. So now the reason behind this one, it's probably related to the Hajime botnet. Hajime does go after Mikrotik routers, and it looks like what they're doing is they're scanning to see if port 8291 is open. And then if it is, I think they actually leverage remote code execution maybe against a different port. But this 8291 is a good one for them to kind of find just the Mikrotik devices. So 360 NetLab blog actually put a post out on March 28th, a few days ago, about this scanning on port 8291, and they talk about some of this. I would recommend people read this article if they can. It's pretty easy to find.
We've seen this before, right? I mean, so yes. You only showed a 15-day window, but I think in the past we've seen.
So you'll see this is compared to the old Hajime, this one adds 2 new features.
Okay.
This particular behavior, scanning for port 8291 TCP, is a new behavior.
Okay.
That we hadn't seen prior to, I guess, this new version of code that they were able to get a copy of. So then the next interesting one that was not on the radar last week, but is this week, is that port 2000 TCP. So you can see lots of scanning, and again, it's up in the 100 to 110,000 scan sources per hour, which is a lot. I think what this is probably related to, this is a very popular port for Mikrotik routers, and they actually have like a bandwidth test tool. So you can like hit this port 2000 on a Mikrotik router, and it does some kind of like bandwidth testing to see what kind of bandwidth the router has to you back and forth.
Right.
So you can see that they kind of maybe abandoned, almost, not entirely obviously, the scanning on 8291 right around the same time that they picked up doing the activity on 2000. So I think there's probably another version out there yet to be analyzed and discussed that is using that port as a fingerprinting method and then doing maybe a similar thing for compromising these Mikrotik routers. There are a lot of them out there. We've got hundreds of thousands of devices simultaneously scanning for this. So that's a pretty significant number of them, which means there are probably that many compromised devices. And then the last one is this port 5555 TCP, which is the Android debugger interface. You know, Android devices have the ability to turn on a debugger port for you to debug applications that are running on there. And some small number of devices have left this on for one reason or other. Because it is a debug port, and it does give you really low-level access to the device, it's really easy to execute your own code on there once that port is open. And that's what somebody's figured out how to do, at least one person or probably more. And they're looking for more and creating a botnet out of these devices.
It looks like there's a significant amount. I think there was about 7,000 devices so far that he had picked up that had this port open. And unfortunately, with a port being open, all kinds of mischief can happen.
So that's a good one to keep an eye on. We do know that there's a family of malware going out that looks for this port to be open, installs a Monero mining piece of malware on the device. That might be a lion's share of activity for this, but there's probably some other people looking to do other things with that as well. And that's it for this week. That's all we really have, but I thought those were some interesting ones.